Hello, and welcome to the Office of the Patriot. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back, and thank you for your continued viewership. It is appreciated. My name is Myron Ibarra, and I am your host. Today's discussion is going to revolve around the failings of the Democrat Party. And for complete transparency, I am not a Democrat, and as a result, some people may see this monologue as biased. That would be fair, but in truth, I'm not really looking for approval or permission for relaying my observations. So if you disagree with me and my critique, please feel free to comment below. So as far back as I can remember, Democrats have captured their voting base, which was primarily made up of blue-collar workers with a promise of a safe and inclusive society for hardworking families. Believe it or not, that phrase is still posted on the DNC website. What American doesn't want that, though? Hell, I do. However, this mantra that the Democrat Party keeps spewing out is very, very far from the truth. I will give the Democrat Party kudos, though. Their propaganda machine is first-rate. They convinced at least half of the American public that the other half are evil, greedy fascists, and they are the considerate and virtuous and democratic people. This propaganda works because many people who become Democrats don't want to be considered evil fascists, so they adopt the side that claims that they will be a virtuous person protecting democracy without looking at the substance of the party. And this group is the largest contingent of Democrats of the three different classes of Democrat. I call this group the useful idiot. So the useful idiot swallows anything the Democrat Party spews out because they believe that government is the best way to ensure equity for everyone. Most of these people are actually genuinely good people, but they're untrusting of others. And that fear makes them rely on government to guide and, if necessary, control the population for the perceived safety and security of all. Freedom will always take a back seat to safety and security with the useful idiot. Next are the bourgeoisie. And yes, I know, bourgeoisie are technically the entrepreneurs of a society, but for this illustration, the term does fit perfectly in that this term has been used to vilify business owners in the past, so I felt it was apropos. So the bourgeoisie are the wealthy who believe in the Democrat narrative, much like the useful idiot. However, for a different reason. They wish to keep their large piece of the pie for their own comfort and privilege, so they amplify the narrative voice to give it meaning and force to keep the useful idiot in line. They claim they're looking out for the well-being of the useful idiots, but in reality, they're only looking out for themselves. And the last group are the evil movers, and these people are also rich, but their goal isn't wealth or to live a comfortable life like the bourgeoisie. It's to gain power and to maintain power over the people. They are aware that their socialist and communist ideologies they promote don't work in large scale, but it suits their goal to have the population dependent on them. They are happy to throw out feed in the form of government subsidies to the useful idiots and tax breaks to the bourgeoisie, and then to pit them against each other to take everyone's eyes off of their scheming to further their own power goals. And what does all this lead to? Well, it leads to a chaotic society where objectivity and truth, science, and even language is now in question. Well, how so? Well, here's a few examples. Violent criminals are being released with no bail and no oversight after their release to the community, while law-abiding citizens are being prosecuted and vilified for defending themselves. This is because we have politically motivated law enforcement departments like the FBI, the United States Department of Justice, many state, county, district attorneys, and U.S. attorneys, and then city mayors who gleefully advocate the responsibility of their post to further their own political aspirations. And then we also have fuel prices. Now, they are coming down somewhat, but they're higher now than in any time during the Trump administration. And with high gas prices go high everything else, because nothing gets to the U.S. consumer without it making its way via plane, train, or automobile. This is especially painful if you happen to live in one of the Democrat-run states and cities, because not only are you paying for the inflated cost for food and energy, you're paying for inflated taxes as well. So let's also not forget Democrats and the media lambasting you for using your gasoline car to get to work so you can barely afford to keep your thermostat at 68 in the winter or 80 in the summer. All the while, they're flying on their private planes, living in extravagant homes with their thermostats down and up when they need to, all in the name of saving the planet. And no one in the Democrat Party can now say what a man or a woman is, because they don't want to hurt the feelings of the people who have been pigeonholed into the newest infamous social class, and that's the marginalized group. America, once the land of opportunity, has been reimagined all right. It's now the land of equity. And that equity is to be guaranteed by the government in the form of handouts that are retermed as rights, because language is also biased and cannot be objectively defined anymore. Well, I like to break things down into bite-sized pieces that people can easily digest. So here's a little parable that I want you to put yourself into. And then, if you wouldn't mind, take the time to comment below on where you would stop your assistance. And I'm getting to this because government assistance basically will take it to the nth degree, but people won't. So, again, please take the time to comment below. So, let's say you're an automobile mechanic of 20 years, and you're gainfully employed, making enough of an income to keep a roof over you and your family's head, but not really much more than that. You have a close friend who isn't a mechanic and is falling on hard times. He's working, but his hours have been cut, so he really has to try to cut corners to make ends meet. He approaches you and asks you if you can help him do a tune-up in his car, and then to replace the fuel filter because the car is kind of sluggish, and then to replace the brakes because the pads are down to the backing plates, or at least he thinks so. So you agree to help him because he's your friend and you know his financial situation. So he obviously can't afford to take the car to the shop that you work at. So you advise him that, yeah, sure, I can help you out during this coming weekend. And he says, well, I need the car for this weekend because I'm working, so it needs to be done by tomorrow. You oblige him and tell him that you'll help him after you get off work at 5 p.m. And he agrees. So after work, you arrive at his house to help him with his car, but he doesn't have the car on jack stands, nor does he have any tools, something he conveniently forgot to tell you. So now he asks you if you can take the car to your house to do the work. And you reluctantly agree, but you decide, okay, fine, you drive the car, his car, to your house with him in it, and you leave your car at his house. So you get the car into the garage and you ask him where all the parts for the tune-up, the fuel filter, and the brake pads. And he claims he didn't purchase the parts because he didn't know what parts would actually be needed. He was just making an assumption on what needs to be done. So now you're stuck with doing a diagnostic on the car to determine what parts are going to be needed. And then after you do that, you have a parts list, and you and your friend jump into your wife's car, because your car is at his house, and you drive him to the nearest parts store. And now you grab all the parts he needs, and you go to the front register, at which time your friend now tells you he doesn't have any money because of work. And so you're stuck with paying for all these parts. So you buy the parts, and with the parts in hand, you go back to your house, and you begin disassembling the car and taking off all the failed parts to install the new parts. And while you do this, because you're underneath the car, your friend is sitting on your stool by the tool chest playing on his phone. And you say, hey, can you come and help me? And he replies, I don't have any mechanical skill, and I use my hands for delicate work, so it probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to help you. So now you're stuck with doing all the work on the car. So about 5 hours later, you get the car finished. You go to start it up, and it idles for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden it dies. So you're concerned. You check all your work to make sure everything's okay, and it is. And then you check to see if the car has any fuel, to which your friend replies, driving to your house, use up the last of the fuel he had, and since he doesn't have any money, would you be willing to spot him $50 until he gets paid at the end of the week? So here's my question. Do you lend him the money for gas? Or where in this scenario would you have drawn the line? Would you have drawn it at buying the parts, or when he decides not to help fix his own car? And that's where we were getting at with regard to government. So if government makes the decision in this scenario, you're stuck with this entire scenario, just like the guy was. However, if you choose, you make a determination on the level of assistance you're going to be giving because it's your help. With government, they take your money and they're the ones who determine who gets help and how much help to get, not you. And when you provide the help, you decide how much you're willing to provide. In my humble opinion, this is a major failing of the Democrat Party. When government starts making determination on what is true and what is false, how people live, who gets help, who is marginalized, then these people no longer maintain any autonomy for their life. And when feelings start to supersede facts, then objectivity isn't far behind. And without objectivity, our society cannot flourish, let alone survive. So I want to thank you for tuning in to today's episode. And if you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing and smashing the like button and sharing my channel on your social media. It would be forever appreciated. YouTube and many of the social media platforms really bury this content because this is a fledgling channel. I really rely on friends and friends of friends to promote this channel and help it stay afloat. So again, thank you. And as always, have a great day and stay safe out there.